care about you, and we hope everything's going okay with you. So all of that support through the years has been really helpful to us. Maybe we could get the PowerPoint one up, BK. I think that was the one that was working. But I want to talk about the work in Manukau. Manukau is just the name of the area that we happen to be in. If this doesn't work, Tim's going to come rescue me, but we'll see how it goes. And some of you have seen some of this before, but I also know that we have some new faces, so just forgive me if I have to go over this again. But I noticed the color on the projector hasn't changed, so that's cool. So here's where you are, and there is an island here down here. You can it's kind of there, but you have to believe me on that one. So it's quite a long way. It takes 5 or 6 hours to get from this neck of the woods to the West Coast. Normally is the way you do it. LA, San Francisco. Now they're running flights out of Houston. So whatever, you have to go there, and then it's like a 12, 13, 14-hour flight from there over the sea to get to Auckland. So it's quite a way. We feel that isolation, and New Zealand is usually behind the curve on a lot of things, and certainly when it comes to the church, we're really isolated there. And I was expressing to some people yesterday that I don't know how many Christians here in America really appreciate how blessed you are to be in a congregation with elders, just for a start, right, to have elders. As I'm speaking right now, there's not a single congregation in New Zealand that has elders. And we've had them on and off through the years. Different congregations have had them on and off. But right now, we don't have a single eldership in the whole country. And to have that shepherding, to have that help, that resource is really, it's really tough. Not having that kind of stability and that maturity that comes with having elders. We can't just invite somebody to have a gospel meeting. Hey, pick up the phone and invite somebody to come in, and then a couple of hours later to have them commit maybe to coming to New Zealand. It's like, how far is it to get there, and how much is it going to cost? And no thanks. It's just not going to happen. And or resource materials, being able to pick up the phone and call Gospel Advocate or call a FHU bookstore or something like that, and just order in some curriculum. That's the curriculum's going to cost $12 and shipping's going to be $60 or something like that. It's ridiculous. And it's just there's a lot of resources that's available to the American church that's simply not available to people often outside the country. And so that's one of the many challenges we face in New Zealand. New Zealand's not a very big country. I guess the South Island, which is hardly anybody lives there, it's like the last person to leave the South Island. Please turn off the lights. So that's just really not very populated, mainly because it's too cold, kind of like Michigan. And then, sorry, I made that mistake again. But if you stick the little island down here on Mobile, Alabama, then the very tip goes up here into the Great Lakes, and so real skinny. So what that means is it does mean that because the church is somewhat spread out, that we do a lot of driving. There's a congregation here stuck out in the middle of nowhere out on this peninsula, and that's about a 5-hour drive on a good day. And there's some congregations down here that's like a 7-hour drive, and not much here in the middle. And so it's a lot of driving. It's what we do. It's part of the job. This kind of gives a regional map here. So here's New Zealand, and here's the islands that we typically do business with. These are islands that have a long-standing historical relationship with New Zealand, and a lot of people from these islands have immigrated to New Zealand. So just as the Hispanic community, the migrants from Central and South America have come to the U.S. looking for a better life for them and their families, so we get a lot of immigrants coming in from the islands, coming to New Zealand and Australia, doing the same. They're just trying to get out of a bad situation, or a situation where there's no opportunities, there's no advancement, and trying to make their life better. And so we have a lot of these, Fiji, Samoa, Cook Islands, Niue, not so much from Niue, pretty small, Tonga, but there are some islands here, for instance, in Samoa, Cook Islands. Where are the Cook Islands? They're here, where there's like 2,500 people on one island, and then 50,000 people from that island live in Australia and New Zealand. That's kind of shows you the opportunities there. But a lot of them end up in New Zealand, and they tend to, because Auckland's the biggest city, they tend to congregate here, and that's a big part of what we do. New Zealand's a beautiful country. I took this just a month ago, or at Easter actually. This is, remember I told you about that place out there that sticks out there in the sea, the peninsula. This is one of the volcanoes there, and you can see that from the school where the camp was being held. So it's beautiful. Actually, it's kind of rare to see that mountain because it's usually covered by cloud. And here's one of our beaches that's about 40 minutes drive from where we live, and you can just walk for miles and miles and miles, and there's nothing. And the sand is black. The sand is black, so it's awesome. So it's very different. The home of rugby, of course, the All Blacks are the best rugby team in the world, kind of like Auburn. But so we get that. We're home of rugby, and they're doing a line out just in case you want to know what that is. Home of sheep. We have like 40 million sheep and 4.5 million people. So we just hope that the sheep are happy. That's also what we want there. New Zealand's kind of known as an adventure playground, and we kill a few tourists every year because of that. They love to come to New Zealand, and they'll just all of a sudden decide to go, hiking up in the mountains, and we'll never see them again, or they'll take a jet boat ride, and the jet boat won't come back. And so, this is just part of the joys of going to New Zealand. This is what you do. It's what you sign up for when you go there, unless you just just take it easy and go to Hobbiton or go see Mount Doom or something like that. So for those of you who are into the Lord of the Rings movies. That's not the New Zealand where we are. I wish it was. I wish we had that outside our backyard. That's not part of the New Zealand we're at. I remember actually I was trying to raise support from a congregation, and I got a report back from the preacher, and he said, from one of his deacons, he said, well, I'd love to go to New Zealand on the church's dime as well. It's like, yeah, go to New Zealand. What fun that's going to be. But it's really hard work, and where we are it's the poorest part of town. It's on the wrong side of the track. It's where a lot of immigrants are there. We have some neighborhoods where there's a huge influx of Fijian Indians because of there was a military overthrow of the Fijian government several years ago, and they kind of promised Fiji for the Fijians, and a lot of the immigrant Indian population decided that was no longer a good place for them to live, and so a lot of them came to New Zealand, and so we have some neighborhoods around our church building where Hindus outnumber those who identify as Hindu outnumber those who identify as Christian, or we have some neighborhoods where those who identify as none. In other words, they don't express any affiliation to any religion whatsoever. They don't count themselves as Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, nothing, right? They're just none. Those outnumber Christians. So that's the kind of neighborhood in which we live. Whoop, it's doing the thing. Here we go. All right. But it's a big city. It's about 1.5 million people in the city of Auckland. So we have 4.5 million people total in New Zealand. It kind of gives you an idea of the population there. So we have a third of the population that live there in Auckland. It's not the capital city. Anybody know the capital city of New Zealand? Yes, Matt? Wellington. Right, Wellington, yeah. That's where Peter Jackson makes all the movies and stuff like that. We call it Wellywood because of that, but this is the economic engine of the country. This is where it all happens. And so 1.5 million people. So that's a lot of people that we have to reach out to. It's even when you take a state like West Virginia, and you think, well, the church is not very big in West Virginia, but the ratio of Christians to non-Christians in West Virginia, I'm talking about the church, right? The ratio of Christians to non-Christians in West Virginia is much, much, much higher than it is the ratio of Christians to non-Christians in New Zealand. So there's a lot of work to do. This map shows the distribution of churches of Christ in New Zealand. I just put some of these ones in red. These ones have shut their doors in the last 2 years. So, and this map changes all the time. Some new churches split off. Some churches get planted, which is great. That's positive. But then also, unfortunately, some places where the church just shuts down and sells their building. And so just within the last year or two, we've lost 2 or 3 congregations. Although I might say positive for us that this red dot became, there's us, the blue dot. They merged with us, and so that was good for us. But the green dots are where there are full-time workers. So that's the congregations that have full-time workers. Some of these are only maybe a couple of families meeting in a living room, 4 or 5 people getting together for Lord's Supper on a Sunday morning in someone's living room, something like that. So it just happens. It looks worse now than it might have, say, a year ago. So when we got there in 2012, about a year either side of our arrival, there's a whole bunch of workers came to New Zealand. It was awesome. It had to have so many people come into the country to work with the church. There was congregations planted here and here. So to have those new workers was really good. And it just so happens right now we've lost 4 different workers. They've just moved back to the States, or maybe they've gone into secular work, or they've just pulled out of work or whatever. So we're really, really in a need for having some workers move back to New Zealand. Just again, location. So there's just an overview map, and this is the population density of Auckland. And the international airport is here. The church is the area that we reach out to is here. Now we have people that come to us from all over Auckland, but that's the neighborhood where we are. Convenient to state highways, convenient to the international airport. We're only 10, 15 minutes away from the international airport. So if you land at 5 o'clock in the morning and you want to come and us to come pick you up, and we'll take you back home, and you can have a cup of tea or whatever, and we're happy to do that. So let us know if you're going through town. We're happy to see. We're desperate to see anybody with a familiar face come through. So that'd be great. It's just you can go to Google Earth and do your own picture here, but that's the corner. This is actually 3 properties that the church building is located on. We're so blessed to have a building. It is incredibly difficult to get property and build buildings now in New Zealand. It's just incredibly expensive. The cost of land and the cost of building is incredible. The median price of houses in Auckland, New Zealand are $500,000 US. So that kind of gives you an idea about how awfully expensive it is. So it's up there with London and Hong Kong and a couple of other international cities as far as how expensive it is. So this building was built in 1966, and we're going to hang on to it. We're going to do everything we can to keep it going and to keep it thriving. At one point, we had 3 congregations using it per week. 3 congregations of the Churches of Christ, 2 Samoan congregations, and ourselves. And then one of the Samoan congregations lost a few people, and so they ended up merging with us, which was great. But another congregation uses it on a Thursday night for their midweek Bible class. It's used all the time. We use it for classes. We use it for youth activities. We use it for so many different things. And so we're truly blessed to have a building, to have a home. Again, think about the blessing. I don't know how much you think about when you come here to worship on a Sunday morning or a Sunday night about the facilities that you've got, but you're truly blessed. There's not many places, and I'm talking about New Zealand, of course. It's true for other mission fields as well. To have a place to meet that they can call their own is really a blessing. Doing that double-click thing. So, planted in the 1960s. We have about 65 on a Sunday morning, something like that. Very diverse. We have about 14 different languages represented on a Sunday morning. They had no full-time worker, and never had elders. I just wanted to kind of show that. I snapped this picture of these 3 tykes, little tykes out there. This is our backyard. We had a goat. One of our new members was looking after a couple of goats, and so he tied them up outside during worship, and I was like, come to our church. We have goats. Does your church have goats? Come on, come to our church, So it was a real selling point. And but then there was also a puppy, so that was good. So this is Jarrell. Jarrell is a Chinese Samoan, and that's Amy, and she's Japanese New Zealand, and that's Gabriella, and she's Colombian. So, and I have no idea what this thing is here. No idea. It shouldn't even be there. But there we go. So our local work, our goal is to increase the learning and serving opportunities. So like I said, we got there, and there hadn't been a worker for 11 years, and so a lot of stuff had just fallen between the cracks. They'd given up on doing a lot of stuff, and so they knew they needed help. In fact, I did a presentation, a little bit of a presentation on this to a congregation in Hobart, Tasmania, just sharing with them some of the work that we're doing. And I had a couple of young ladies from Adelaide, Australia, come up to me, and they were really excited about what we were doing. And they said, after we got talking, they said, well, could you do this if you didn't have a full-time work? And I said, probably not, probably not. And so that's, again, a lot of churches around the world are like that. We have PIBC classes. PIBC stands for Pacific Island Bible College, so this has been going for several years now. That's overseen by the Forest Park Church of Christ in Atlanta. Robert Martin heads that up, and he's been working in the South Pacific for decades. And he goes through the islands and offers classes. And a few years ago, they started swinging by. They'd have to wear, shirt sleeves, pack really light for the tropics, and then pack coats to come to New Zealand. It's quite a big difference in temperature between the Pacific Islands and where we are. Youth activities, letterboxing. We're actually allowed to stick things in people's mailboxes and not break the law. If they have something on the front of the letterbox, the mailbox that says no circulars or no advertising or whatever, we try to honor that. But otherwise, we do letterboxing. Door knocking. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But we do that in our area several times a year. We have a leadership training program for young people. I didn't start this up, but another man and his wife started that up about the time that we got there. This is one of the couples that came into work about the time that we arrived. And they called it Leadership Training for Christ. But it's just a ripoff of Lads to Leaders. That's what it really is. So it's a really good program, and we've been doing that for several years now. And unfortunately, the couple who were heading that up aren't able to do it anymore, and they sunk a lot of their own money into it. And so that's something that we've now taken over for this year. This is our first year to start running it independently of them, or to run it instead of them. And so that's one of the needs that we have going forward. Support activities at sister congregations. We work well with other congregations in Auckland. There are a handful of congregations in Auckland. Some of them we unfortunately we just can't. We're not comfortable doing business with as far as sharing pulpits and so on. But there's at least two other congregations that we do a lot with. We have a joint fellowship every Sunday night, every first Sunday night of the month. So we take turns hosting it, and we just circulate around. And it's great. It's a really wonderful time for fellowship and meeting each other. It's also cross-cultural because we have one of the congregations has a lot of they have a lot of like Chinese people and South Africans as well as Kiwis and others, and we have a lot of the Pacific Islanders, and you can see some of those, and in the Samoan congregation. So it's a real multicultural festival. But we do that once a month, as well as camps. We go all over the country with camps and so on. Bible studies ongoing all the time, and we've had several baptisms in the last 12 months. As far as around the country, I hold gospel meetings, seminars. I've spoken at family camps, lectureship programs in New Zealand and further. Ladies' retreat, Chris has spoken at them. We've hosted visiting speakers at South Auckland, referrals from World Bible School. So I get an email every now and then from somebody who signs up in New Zealand on the WBS website, and then we knock on their door, and we try to knock on their door and hand deliver them. We actually try to talk them into having a one-on-one Bible study because we think that's more effective. But otherwise, if they're just more comfortable doing a study through the mail, we'll do that as well. I've developed tracts and other materials for use in other congregations. Here's one of the things that we've been working on the last couple of years is our Make Disciples training program. So we had Fishers of Men. Has anybody here heard of Fishers of Men? Has Fishers of Men ever been to Alkire Road since? I don't remember them coming while I was here, but it's a great program, and it was developed in the 1970s, and it's designed to make people comfortable striking up a conversation with people, and the kind of questions to ask and the approach to take, and then transitioning from that into a Bible study, and then how to conduct a Bible study. And so But a lot of us found, for the average member, we found, and this is, I don't want to put down Fishers of Men because it's a great program, but we found it a little overwhelming for the New Zealand context, especially given we have 40% of the people who live in New Zealand have English as a second language, and so we just find it a little too much. And so we've streamlined it down, boiled it down, made it a little bit easier, a little quicker. So me and several other preachers have developed our own program there in New Zealand. So we've had several of our members who've been through the Fishers of Men program a few years ago, and now they've been through a kind of a cut-down version of the Making Disciples program. And this trip was the first time that Chris and I were able to leave ongoing Bible studies and know that we had a collection of our brothers and sisters in Christ back there at South Auckland who could take on our studies for us. And so that is awesome. You know, that's a big progress. We've had people who've been Christians for 40 years, never set up a Bible study in their lives, have had their first Bible study. Christians people who've been Christians for 30 years who've never knock on a door for the first time in 30 years. So this is just a matter of training and moving ahead on those different fronts. Yeah, I know. Let me go. Oh yeah, long-term plan. Obviously, we want to continue growing. We have long-term development to be self-governing. We've put some strategies in place to try to get from the men's meeting situation to an elder situation. We want to be self-supporting. I'm very blessed at South Auckland. It's one of the few congregations in New Zealand that's able to support me financially. It's not enough to support Chris and I, given the cost of living there in New Zealand, so we have to come to the States to raise the rest of it. But we are blessed to have that from South Auckland. We want to be self-propagating. We'd like to be able to plant congregations and be able to plant other churches around the area. And of course to help the church in Australasia, which is New Zealand and Australia and the Pacific as a whole. Just going through some pictures here. This was the campaign we had in June 2018. For this campaign, we only had 4 workers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, there might have been a 5th, but she's not in there. But great people, great students from Fried Hardeman, just did everything we asked them to, no fear, no pain, no problem. They just went out there and did it, knocking doors and so on. And then we had all these guys helping out to members of the congregation who are equipped to be able to do that, as well as some of our young people helping out as well. So it's really, really good to have that. We had the FHU students for a few days. We door knocked 3 half days. We got to the 3rd half day on a Saturday, and we had 29 Bible studies set up, and we had to quit at that point. It was too many. We just can't handle that much, especially when you think about a lot of them were like, what's the best time for you? And they say, 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, who's going to do that? Well, nobody who's working. So if it's a lady, then that fell to Chris, and Chris is like, I can't do everything. It's true. We couldn't meet all the obligations we had for all those studies we set up. So at some point we just had to say, that's enough, and let's see how it goes. And then we had 5 baptisms over the next couple of months, a few months. Here's Ryan. I don't know if the date means anything to you, but that's like your January, right? So the pool's not frozen over. It doesn't quite get that cold. What's this? You think that I'm actually saying something here? I may be. Or it's just me locked, my jaw is locked because I'm just frozen cold, right? I am frozen to my core at this point. So we don't have a baptistry. And so we either have to find a pool, we go out into the ocean, we go wherever we can. And so one of my dreams is to have some like a portable baptistry or something that we can use in Auckland. This is part of the Leadership Training for Christ convention, and this was in October. There's one of our young men, Isaac. He's leading a song here. You can't see, but he's leading it in Samoan, so we do both Samoan and English in that program. There's Palms North Camp, January 2019. I spoke at this camp, but it's everybody's out in tents. There's a few places over here where soft people find a bunk or something to sleep in, but the rest of us are out here in tents. So anyway, it's good to see the kids out playing there. This is the next week. This is a camp hosted by Hamilton, and I was speaking there too. Not me. I'm not that one there, but I never seem to get a picture of me, going up there. But I promise I was there. And unfortunately, this is one of the congregations that's losing its full-time workers. And so Hamilton Church, where I was baptized many years ago, has asked us to consider taking over this camp. And so that's probably a new work that we'll take up for next year. Then a couple of months later, we're into Easter camp, and I'm actually there that time. You can see me. It's probably the biggest worship service in New Zealand ever is when we're there for that Easter camp. It's well supported. Lots of congregations from all over the islands go there, and it's very well attended, and so it's great to have worship there. This is Lonely. I know it doesn't sound like what it says, but we pronounce his name Lonely, and Meliami, and their daughter here, and that's us, obviously, and we've been studying with them every week for several months now, and they were baptized back in February, and the work is ongoing there. Chris also has a separate study with Meliami during the week as well. This is PIBC classes in May. Things were getting very busy. Here are our teachers, and Stacy Ferguson and Kathy Ferguson. Stacy does a great job teaching. He was teaching the men sermon preparation and development, and we had several of our guys involved in that, and we really needed it, so we really needed that. I got a lot of good men, but it's always good to get that extra training, and then Kathy taught ladies' class as well, which was well supported. Then this is all bang, 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 all just in May. So then I fly to Hobart, Tasmania. They've had an Eastern Shore lectureship there for several years. You probably don't know these people, but Charlie De Palma was with World Video Bible School for a while, and that's Rod Rutherford's son, and so you may recognize some, and the rest of them you don't know, but Kent's a fellow New Zealand worker, good guy. Just closing up here, but we really fortunate, just a year ago, an organization did a study of Christianity and religion in New Zealand, which is really useful because not a lot of people are doing that. And so this is very unusual for us to get access to real statistics when we're in New Zealand. But what you may not be able to notice here, but just look at this: 33% identify as Christian. 16% of those people go to worship at least once a month. 9% of those, they're really active. But that leaves a good chunk of people who identify as Christian and who don't have a church home. They count themselves as Christian, but they're not going anywhere on a Sunday morning. And we regard that as a growth opportunity. Same study, 10% who said they weren't Christians, but are very interested and quite open. So the point is that we know from our door knocking that they're there. We have a method, we have a way of approaching at the door. We may knock on the door and maybe nobody will come to the door, or somebody will peek from behind the curtains and think it's a salesman or something like that and not answer the door, or Mormon, I don't know. So maybe nobody will answer the door, and then we'll go to the next one and we'll ask them if they want to. We actually do a survey method. We'll ask them if they want to do a survey, and they may just say, no, I'm not interested. So that can happen as well. And then sometimes what will happen is if people respond to some questions, then we'll get into a conversation with them, and we're simply trying to get into a conversation at their door. We're not trying to yank them out of their house and make them go to church where we are. We're not trying to do that. We're just seeing if there's any glimmer of an interest in Bible study. And you would be amazed that there are quite a few out there. And not only that, but most of them are going to a denominational church already. And what we're finding is that they are starved for Bible teaching. And so they're happy, even though they go somewhere else on a Sunday morning, they're happy for us to come into their homes and have a Bible study. And it's amazing. You see their eyes light up, and they're like, I had never heard that before. I have never seen that before. It is amazing. Not only are they not getting any Bible teaching where they are, but they're not getting care. Right? They might have several pastors, who work at that church. But when they need help, they call us. They don't call their own pastors, their own preachers. And so we know these people are out there. In fact, 4 out of the 5 that we baptized were exactly fit that profile. So we know they're out there. It's hard work. We've just got to go find them. So I want to just finish this evening. And, I've been thinking about this and sharing this with the congregation in South Auckland. There's so many different ways to try to grow your church, and a lot of them are perfectly okay, and some of them perhaps are not. But I know that in New Zealand, the largest denominational meetings or churches in New Zealand are they're charismatic community church. If that doesn't mean anything to you, that's all right. But the charismatic community church model, which means that it's going to be very entertaining. It's going to be pretty shallow, unfortunately, for the most part. They're going to come in. There's going to be a band. They don't have to sing. They don't have to do anything. It's all laid on for them. Their children are going to be taken away from them, and they're happy for that to happen. So they don't have to worry about looking after their children on a Sunday morning, because a whole bunch of adults will leave the worship service to go take care of those kids on a Sunday morning. And so those adults aren't part of the worship, and they're not training their kids. We know that there are some congregations that we talk to them or these churches, and they reintegrate their children into the mainstream church at age 12 or 13, something like that. So they've never been in a worship service for 13 years. I don't know how well that goes for them. But so we're committed to very basic missions, and we believe that. Turn to chapter 28 of Matthew, and I know you're very familiar with this, but where it says in Matthew 28, verse 18, "And Jesus came and said to them, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." And so I know, look, there are people who look at that verse and say, that's not for us. That was for first century time. He was talking to the apostles. Except you turn around, and then in Acts chapter 2, you've got Peter up there preaching. Then you turn a few more chapters later on, and you've got Philip, who's not an apostle, out there preaching in Samaria in Acts chapter 8, and lots of people responding. And so clearly this was the mission of the church. I would love to say that people will just look us up on the internet or find us on Facebook or whatever it is, and just come because they've got a handsome preacher, or because they have an awesome song leader, or because the building's pretty, or because the services are short. Or I would love if that were the case, that we could attract people randomly out of the community and they would just want to come to us. But that's not how it's going to work for us. There may be other churches that are able to pull that off, but that's not us. That's not our work. We're committed to going out there and finding people. And I just want to commend you here at Alkire Road for doing that, for supporting that kind of work, not only locally, but also in other places as well. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. If someone is not a Christian today, the reason that I'm here, the reason that I'm in New Zealand, is because I know there are lost people. I know there are people without Christ. I want everyone to have what I have, and that is to have the assurance of knowing that God is my Savior, that the Lord died for me on the cross. The Holy Spirit gave us His Word so that I can know what God's will is for me in my life. I want that for everybody. And so we're going to sing a song in just a second, and I appeal to you. If you are not a Christian, please look at what Christ did for you on the cross. Respond to Him and do what Jesus has told me and other Christians to do, and that is to go out and teach and to make disciples. And that means the beginning point is to put on Christ in baptism. If you are not a Christian and you've struggled in your life, you've struggled with your faith, then this is an opportunity also to seek out the strength and comfort of the church and to have the prayers of the church. Whatever your need is, please come as we stand and sing.